Hey everyone, FPS Chasley here and welcome to Modern Naval Warfare. Today I'm going to show you around the pilot station, just let you know, like what all the features are, what they all do, because there's a lot of buttons here, and it's pretty overwhelming looking, so... it's not too bad though. Once I break it down here, I'll show you what all this stuff means, and help you play the game better, so... Right at the top here, we just got vital telemetry about the ship. So heading, that's the direction you're facing in degrees. This goes from 0 to 359. 0 is due north, 90 is east, 180 is south, 270 is west. Got speed and knots. So this is speed. This is speed through the water. So how fast fluid is moving around the boat. I'm not sure we'll get into... So there's two kinds of speeds. There's speed through the water and there's speed over ground. Maybe we'll get into that later in this video, but for now, this is simply how fast you're going in the water. We'll leave it at that. Pitch, so this is the angle of the boat going up or down in degrees. So ever so slightly negative right now at our steady depth. Then over here, DP, this is our depth of the boat, 55.2 feet. And this is from the ocean surface down to the bottom of the keel. So the keel is the long thing, the bottommost part of the boat, so that's the depth there from the surface down to the keel. And yeah, so there's your basic telemetry. This will, heading and speed and depth will be reported on most stations, so kind of have an idea of what's going on. All right, but let's start up here in the top left. So this is your compass wheel. This just shows which direction you're facing on that 360 degree wheel there. Got some telemetry here. Turn rate gives you degrees per second, so how quickly are you moving from one position to the other. And then also listed as our roll, so how much the boat is, if you're looking down the long axis of the sub, how much it's rotating this way. And that'll really only happen in rough seas or if you're turning. Let's order a course change here. If we come down to this order heading, just punch in the number you want. We'll do 270 and order it. And then we'll see the, see we're getting some turn rate coming up here. There's a touch of roll. You will roll a little bit while turning. More at high speeds than at low speeds here. But yeah, this is a 0.8 degree second turn. Just below that, we got our rudder indicator here, so showing you the angle of your rudder. Right down here at the bottom with the dot, that's 0 degrees rudder, so straight rudder, running straight, or rudder or midships. And then it shows how much the rudder can turn this way. This is obviously exaggerated. 35 degrees isn't all the way up there. It's really like, down here, so, but just giving you some finer ability to inspect the degree of the rudder. And then it's also spit out here as well, that exact number at 15 degrees. Lines up what we got down there. All right, if we come to this little center stack here, this is where you kind of order stuff to happen. Ordered trim. The trim feature really isn't fully working yet, so I'm going to skip that for now. Ordered depth. Yeah, so you can set your depth here. Just punch in the number you want and change your depth. First, you're going to want to make sure there's enough water beneath your boat to dive to a certain depth, but we'll leave that for another video at the moment. Assuming there is, you could punch in, for example, 500 feet. I'm not going to do that now. I don't think it's that deep. We'll do 200. And we can order that depth change. And while we're doing that, we can come up here to the top right and look at some of this stuff here. So this is just some telemetry about what the up or down condition of the boat is doing. So pitch degrees. So right now the boat is angled about 6 degrees down. This says 6 degrees. This looks more like 9 degrees. Rate, degrees per second, so this is how much your pitch is changing as you're ordering a depth up or down. So like, say you move the planes upwards, this might go to like, your pitch will increase by 0.5 degrees per second, just kind of showing you how rapidly you're doing a maneuver perhaps. Acceleration, this is measuring how quickly your vertical... Well, first, I guess let's talk about rate. So rate is how much your depth is changing per second, feet per second, just to show you, how the boat's... Just vital information to know how quickly you're changing your depth in case something changes, something you're not expecting. that, you know, you could just look at the depth number, but I mean, I can see it's changing, but it's changing by, I guess, like a small amount, but I can't really see like the rate that clearly. So this just gives you a better sense of that. And then acceleration is how quickly the rate is changing. So this really shouldn't change too much unless you're in some kind of a crazy situation. Some of these accelerations are pretty high. But as you may have noticed down here, we also have a plane layout. It's the same principle as the rudder layout here, showing you the angle on the planes currently. There's stern planes and bow planes, so there's planes at the back of the boat, planes at the front of the boat. I can show those off real quickly. Yeah, while we're back here, here's the rudder, and here's the stern planes. And then up at the front, we got the bow planes. And like with the rudder, you can see what the angle is on the planes and the front and back. But then the stern also has a separate collection of planes. It has an inner set of planes and an outer set of planes. Might be able to show that here. Might be hard to see, but basically there's this smaller chunk inboard here is the inner plane, and then the bigger part out here is the outer plane. So it's just a bigger, smaller surface. When you're going slow, you want to use the whole plane to get the most authority, but when you're going super fast, you don't want to use the whole plane. It'll change the boat's direction too much. You want finer adjustment at higher speeds generally. But speaking of that, we also have some locks here for the various planes. So inner stern plane lock. So right now they're unlocked. They can be moved. You can turn those off. Bow plane rigging. So these can go in or out. Right now that feature is not modeled at the moment, I don't believe. And then the bow plane lock. All right, coming on down further, we got a spot here for, you know, manual or auto control of the rudder, stern planes and bow planes. Presently, this is all automatic. I believe at some point in the future this will become something you can mess around with, but right now you cannot. So they're right now set to auto, and yeah. So not much else to say about that. Moving on to the left here. So this is our. Not really sure what to call this little area. It kind of has an eclectic collection of things. We'll just start at the top and work our way down. Emergency deep. So this is maybe when you're at like periscope depth. And if there's like a boat heading near you and there's a risk of a collision, you can hit this button and the boat will do everything in its power to get you to 155 feet as quickly as possible. So like slam the planes down, all ahead flank. This will be something that will alert people to your presence if they were not already aware of you, because you will be making noise to try and get away from a threat as quickly as possible. Surface ops. So this is when the boat's on the surface, or if you're ordering the boat to go to the surface. So what this does is this just locks all the planes, so the planes can't accidentally do something, because when you're up on the surface with hatches open and such, you don't want to accidentally, you know, have the planes go down and potentially submerge the boat with hatches open. So yeah, that'll be part of your surfacing evolution there. And then so now we've covered everything regarding, like, you know, depth, turning. So now we can move on to speed, and that's pretty much what this lower part of the pilot station here, the steering tab of the pilot station here, deals with, is speed. So right here, EOT order adjustment, engine order telegraph order adjustment. This will say what you last entered with one of these fields, and we got a few different fields here that you can use to set your speed. So the first one here is knots. What this does is this sets your speed. Okay, first, before we address this, now's the time to distinguish between speed through the water and speed over ground. Okay, so I can show this over here in the ECDIS. We got speed through water and speed through the ground. We can see that it actually is shown up here, STWSOG. Right now they are the same. So speed through water is basically just how quickly you're moving through a fluid. That fluid can be moving on its own. And that's where the distinction with speed over ground comes into play. Because if we look at how much distance we're moving over time on this map, that's speed over ground. Speed through the water is simply how quickly water is flowing over the hull of the boat. So say there was like a current out here, moving in the opposite direction we're going at 3 knots. So we're still going through that fluid at 10 knots, but the whole fluid is moving 3 knots in this direction. So if we subtract that 3 knots from our 10 knots of water speed, we get speed over ground, which would be 7 knots. So even though we're going 10 knots in the water, our apparent speed, or aka our speed over ground, is only 7 knots. So that is the distinction that's important to understanding this part of the pilot station. So knots is setting your speed over ground for 10. So in our scenario with that 3 knots of head current, we'd have to be making 13 knots through the water to go 10 knots over ground. So when you do knots, that's what you're really setting. So you may be making more noise than you expect for your speed. The reason I bring that up is that's why this is different from turns for knots, which we'll get to in a second. Turns, so this is just setting shaft revolutions per minute. So let's see, I guess at some point there should be like a chart made for this to show like what this corresponds to, but this is literally just telling how quickly you want this, the propulsor here inside the pump jet to turn. That's it. Okay, so we have that setting there, and then down here at the bottom we have engine order, so like bell speed. So this is basically just like you can just quickly order an output for the engine, and this is equivalent to setting turns or turns for knots. You're just having the engine set for a desired speed and not a speed over the ground. So you got stop here in the middle, and then you got a bunch of, so you got your different ahead speeds and your different astern speeds. Ahead 1/3 is about 5 knots, 2/3 is 10 knots, standard's 15 knots, full is 20, and flank is top speed, which is, I believe, like 33 or 35 knots or something. Maybe 34, somewhere around there. It's all out. You'll be making a lot of noise. And then in the stern, we have similar stuff, which generally won't be used unless there's an emergency, but you won't go anywhere near as fast in a stern speed as you will in a front speed. And if you go backwards and you have towed arrays out, so you will likely lose those arrays if you go backwards, so be aware of that. Okay, so that's it for the steering tab. Let's come on over to the masts tab. And this is where you're going to control all the masts in the boat. So you want to make sure you're at periscope depth before you raise any of these masts, which is 0.56 feet. And you don't want to be going any faster than 5 or 6 or 7 knots. Otherwise, that's going too fast. It will damage those masts. So I believe the damage point is around like 2/3. I don't know for certain, but just stay at 5 knots. That's fine. There's not really any need to go much faster than that with the mast. So, and then you got a button here to retract all the masts simultaneously, so you don't have to click them individually. Hull opening, so any way you can get out of the boat needs to be secured, of course, before you can dive the boat. So these are all green, means those are all good, closed. All right, towed arrays. So towed arrays or towed antennas, excuse me. These are things you reel out of the boat to help you hear the ocean better, or to pick up communications, etc., etc. And you can just extend and retract these. So currently both these towed arrays are retracted. If we go ahead and click extend, that will go out, shows that as extending. And then if you click extend again, you can stop it at whatever position it's at, or you can let it just go until it's all the way out and it will stop automatically. And then you can click retract, pull that back in. You can only adjust one towed array at a time. Floating wire and towed buoy are not currently modeled yet. I'm not sure how. I don't think the extraction or retraction of these will affect those, but I can't say for certain. Okay, so that's it for all your kind of sensors and that kind of thing. If we come on down to the bottom, we have ourselves the ballast tanks. So if you're on the surface here and you're going to be diving the boat, the first thing you'll do is open these forward and aft valve groups. That'll start flooding the ballast tanks. They're currently shut. We're in neutral buoyancy. If you want to surface the boat, you'll be at like periscope depth, and to do that, you'll raise the snorkel, and then you can start the aft and forward low pressure blowers, and those will empty the ballast tanks. That will take some time. Filling will take some time, not as long as emptying them. And then you also have your emergency blow tank inventory. So how much pressurized air do you have to quickly force all the water out of the ballast tanks in an emergency? That is something that I guess let's back out to the pilot station a little bit here. These are the so-called manual control. These are the chicken switches. Flipping these things will force a ton of air into your ballast tanks and pump all the water out, and this is used for getting to the surface in an emergency. And this will show the inventory of air you have in those tanks. Anytime you use it, you'll have to spend a while on the surface to recharge those tanks. You can see those buttons for that here is forward and aft EMBT tanks. Okay, so that's it for the mast tab, and then the last one we can get to at the moment is the trim tab. Let's actually see if we can fiddle with this a little bit here. But basically what trim tanks boil down to is like the main ballast tanks. So I guess there's like two kinds of ballast tanks on the boat. You have the main ballast tanks. I can show you where those are. They're back here and up here in front of the boat and behind the boat. And you know, you have to take on enough water to make the boat heavy enough so that it will be in this state, you know, neutrally sitting in the ocean. But those are big tanks. You don't adjust them easily. They're not used for adjustment. What you do is you fill those up just to get the boat neutral. So when you're on the surface, the boat is light. That's how it can float. And then you flood the ballast tanks to make the boat neutral so it can sit at any depth in the ocean. But the trim tanks are used to finely adjust that, to use the trim tanks. The ballast tanks just stay put. So as the boat is, you know, moving along, the trim tanks may need to have water moved between them to keep the boat balanced. In a Virginia class, this can be done automatically and is typically done automatically. In older boats, this is done manually. But you can do this manually. I've never really fussed with this too much, but let's see if we can try and get this to do something here. So we'll switch to manual mode. We're going to use the trim pump. You can't just start it. You have to select where you want water to go from. So we got our bunch of our trim tanks here. We got an aft tank. We have WRT. This is for the torpedoes. This is for flooding and emptying torpedo tubes. So we can just move stuff from one trim tank to another. So we'll, just for the heck of it, we'll select trim tank 1. We'll put it to trim tank 5. So we got our from and our to selected. Now this lights up the trim pump. So now we can start that pump. And we'll move it up here to 600 RPM. And you can see water is moving. So the trim system does indeed work, and you can do this manually or automatically. I've not fussed with this too much manually or automatically, but so I'm just going to go ahead and stop that, put this back to auto mode. And you also have a drain pump here if you want to drain tanks. I'm assuming that just drains it to the ocean. Eventually there will be these hovering and system tabs. Those are not in place currently. And then the last thing here is these 3 dots down here. This tells you whether you're cavitating or not. So the pump jet back here is spinning. It's spinning to push water. If it spins too quickly, the pressure will get so low on the blades that the water will actually start to boil. And it makes bubbles, and then those like instantly pop once they get out of that low pressure region. That makes a lot of noise and also damages your propulsor surface there. So this just lets you know that whether you're cavitating or not. So the first dot here is the only one lit up. We're good, we're not. But if you increase speed here and you're too shallow, it'll start cavitating. So to avoid cavitating, you have to either lower your speed or increase your depth. And that's all you can do with that. You can't control it any other way. And at the pilot station, we have this little secondary screen over here. So if you want to, you can have something up over there, and you can have something up over here, so you can just kind of glance back and forth. Press this up button here. We have this little status overview screen. Just gives you some detail about the boat. You got a little depth gauge here, and this just shows the depth of your boat. And you got depth at certain points. You got the depth of the bow, depth of the stern, depth of the keel, depth of the sail. Very cool info. And then you got some alarms, like if you get too shallow, this alarm will go off. If you get too deep, You have 2 alarms for that, they'll go off. Can't adjust them though. Rigging screen, you got a bunch of buttons here for rigging for certain aspects. Not sure these are fully functional yet or not, but just certain conditions of the boat you can rig for. And then you got your alarms here. So I've got diving alarm, missile emergency, general quarters. So like if you're going to battle stations or something, collision, about to hit something, power plant, something's wrong with propulsion. And yeah, so you hit these alarms here, turn these on. We can turn the diving alarm on. Pretty standard stuff. General quarters. So there you go. So yeah, that will do it for the old pilot station there. Pretty nifty stuff, lots of detail that you can check out and see with that. Got a little status thing here showing state of the boat as well. Another little screen for that. And actually shows bottom sounding as well too. Not sure why it doesn't show the bottom sounding here, but anyway. We also have a little AI pilot station crewman here, this guy. You can go ahead and click that and you can just order these things via this kind of interface. You can do course. So you can set an actual course, like 090 degrees, or just a rudder control, like just turn the rudder. Let's do port hard, see what we get with that. I think we're going 5 knots, so it's not going to be anything crazy. But yeah, we're swinging around with that. Rudder's at 25 degrees. So yeah, then we can go ahead and cancel that, come back to course, amidships. And then of course, speed, depth, masts, wires. Can control all this kind of stuff from here. And we had some of those roll and pitch indicators down there in the pilot station. You also have them up here, so you got your roll indicator up here, mostly for other people in the control to see what's going. And then we got the same over here for pitch instead. So yes, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was helpful just to kind of dispel some of the differences here with the pilot station. And yeah, see you guys next time. Have a good one, and as always, good hunting.